Welcome to another episode of The Blue Sofa. Today, I want to talk about clarity because I think from working with female founders, female entrepreneurs, and leadership for females, like women in leadership, for the last 14 years, I think one of the things that comes up the most is the difficulty in getting clear on what to do. So clarity, from my perspective, is not a mindset issue. It's also has nothing to do with confidence. And it's not a personality trait. You don't have more clarity because of the person you are. Clarity is definitely a leadership skill that we as female entrepreneurs and founders and leaders particularly need to really hone in on and practice. And, I've been studying and researching the differences between running a business and being a founder who is a man and a woman and what the differences are. And for female entrepreneurs in particular, waiting has quietly become a very expensive female business strategy. Not because women aren't capable of taking action and aren't capable of, setting the course and, bringing clarity and vision and mission into their business, but because in many ways we are conditioned to delay. And then we call it alignment. We call it to stay open. We call it to be flexible. We call it to stay in the process. We call it intuition, right? And though it looked like something that is feminine or is intuitive on the surface, in business leadership, prolonged waiting is very, very expensive. Most women I work with are very deeply committed to what they do. They're very committed, and they're also passionate and experienced. And they really, really want to succeed in what they're building, not because of ego, not because they need the success or the acknowledgement, but because they want to impact, right? So it's not because they lack ideas or skills or dedication in any way, but they are struggling with overthinking and over consideration. They consider what would the audience feel? How might clients react to this? Are they even allowed to change direction? Do they feel they're ready enough to decide? And somewhere along the way, leadership turns into this emotional labor. And because instead of deciding and leading, they're managing perceptions, right? I want to reframe something for you today because I want to talk about what clarity actually is. Because clarity in business has nothing to do with certainty. It has nothing to do with confidence. Has nothing to do with the absence of fear. Clarity is, in some capacity, self-trust expressed through decisions. That can be big decisions, but definitely also micro decisions. And this is where leadership lives, especially feminine leadership, because clarity has nothing to do with pushing or dominating, but it's choices and choosing a direction, choosing a focus, choosing what really matters, choosing what is important in this phase of your business and in this phase of your life as a founder, as an entrepreneur. Even when your person, your human, like you as the one who is running your business, still feels unsure, right? For many women, waiting feels way safer than clarity. My take and perspective on this is that sometimes waiting is actually because we are confused and our minds are confused. So we as the CEO of the business, the one who's leading the mission, we are a little bit confused in of ourselves, right? So clarity can really feel like being too much. You know, when you show up and you embody that clarity, it can feel like you are too much. You take up too much space. You are too decisive, and you will disappoint someone, right? Because clarity is also closing doors. So instead, waiting and confusion get dressed up as intuition. I just don't feel like I'm into this. I'm not ready yet. I want to keep my options open. And I'm not saying like this is the hard truth, but I want to give you an invitation to reflect. Because what if the waiting, what if some part of that is fear? And what if that is actually just showing itself in confusion? And what if confusion is not a neutral feeling? What if confusion actually has a cost? What if confusion and waiting actually drains your energy more than you think? What if it delays the momentum that is already ready for you? All the possibilities that are there for you and ready for you to choose and to grab and to claim. And what if confusion actually weakens your authority quietly, sneakily under the surface without you knowing it? So, for example, in business, confusion, waiting disguised as fear can look like, could be changing offers every few months. Could be rewriting content instead of publishing it. It could be consuming more information instead of actually diving into like, what is my brand voice? What is my authentic mission that I want to share? What is my purpose and direction that I want to take my business in? And what if waiting for alignment is actually a way of not choosing, not claiming, not taking the steps towards the place that you want to go to? And I think the reason why this is costly and the reason why it can be a little bit difficult to recognize is that it doesn't feel dramatic. It just feels like I'm stuck and I don't know why. And it just feels like your energy is draining because you're not moving forward. And you feel like you're actually doing a lot, but nothing is really just landing. So it's not because you lack strategy when this is happening. It's not because you don't know what to do. You just don't have that clean leadership, that direction that helps you to choose what actions to take. And that direction comes from clarity, right? And I think another layer that's really important, especially when we work with female entrepreneurs and female founders, is that many women are actually not exhausted, or it's not because they feel that confusion that's like the fear that's disguised as waiting. It's not because they're doing too much. We look at our counterpart entrepreneurs or founders that are men, and we're like, oh, they do so much. But it's actually not because we can't match that. It's because we are holding too much. So as women, it is almost impossible for us to see a problem and not want to solve it. Whereas for men, because they're wired in a different way, they can see a problem and ignore it. And it's the same for us, and it kind of spreads out. And this is like we can call it the mental load, we can call it the invisible labor. I call it holding too much. So we are holding, for example, our team's emotions, our clients' emotions, our audience reactions, our team's expectations, our family's expectations, our own inner critic. And we are like pre-processing responses even before they are there and before we act, because that's the way we are wired. The thing is, it is not I want to say it's not like a balanced feminine energy. It's not intuition. It is what we call over responsibility. And that over responsibility is one of the things that really do kill clarity. So when it comes to like leading yourself and leading your business, the self-leadership, it doesn't mean that you are always right. And it doesn't mean that you know exactly what's going to happen. It just means that you are willing to decide. You're willing to choose a direction and let the reality respond to that direction, right? And you're willing to lead before you have proof. Extremely important, right? You're willing to, look at the overthinking and soothe it and say, it's okay. It is my job to lead before we have the proof of what's going to happen. And it is for you to trust yourself enough to make the first move. That's clarity. And adjust later. So clarity doesn't mean that you are rigid or you are like, it has to be this way. It means that you lead your business, you lead yourself, you lead your thoughts, you lead your feelings, you lead your language, right? And this is where we want to reclaim clarity. We want to reclaim clarity in a new way. So instead of trying to copy what our masculine counterparts are doing, because they're doing it so well and it fits them, right? It is like they're made to run a business and to lead a business in this way. We want to do it as women because we are wired in different ways. So reclaiming clarity is not about demanding answers. It is about the ability to decide and to adjust and to separate what is my voice from the market, right? What is my intuition from my conditioning? What is my leadership from my need to be liked? Because clarity does not come from adding more. It really comes from subtracting what isn't yours and simplifying. So I think when I look at my clients and when I look at myself and my own like evolution in my business, I can see that when I started out, I was trying to copy like what everybody else was doing. And fact is just that a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of like visible business gurus are men. And I tried to copy that. And the problem was for me that I couldn't copy it one-to-one. So it led me to burnout because I was doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. And what I needed was not another strategy, even though I thought that was what I needed, but I needed clarity. Clarity on who am I, clarity on what is my values, clarity on where do I want to take my business, clarity on what is my market, what is my voice, what is my products, who's my client, and how do I show up in my marketing and my visibility? How do I show up in my sales? How do I show up in my delivery? How do I show up in my backend, running a team and what systems to choose and use? And all of that come from reclaiming clarity. All of that it was the ripple effect of reclaiming clarity. So clarity is a leadership skill. Clarity is not something we wait for to appear. It is a leadership skill. And I want to invite you, like, if you want to learn my 3 steps and my 3 processes that I use to create clarity, I want to invite you to join a workshop. I have linked it below, where I teach you how to claim clarity, because clarity comes before the aligned business choices that you want to make. So you want to be able to lead yourself into clarity, reclaim clarity, right? Before you make decisions, before you say, look, I want to take my business there. I want to do this in my visibility. This is me. This is authentic me in my visibility. This is authentic me in my marketing. This is authentic me in my selling. This is authentic me in running a team. This is authentic me in delivery in my business. This is authentic me in showing up as the CEO, the leader of the business, the mission, right? And reclaiming clarity comes before that. And it is a leadership skill that I believe everybody should know, because it simplifies. It subtracts the noise from your decision-making processes, and it allows you to feel into where do I want to take my business, so you get that direction. And I mean, I don't know if you heard the last podcast, but I talked about how resetting your business every January, but we can do that all the time, right? It's like every time we get the shiny object syndrome, we want to reset something, we want to try a new strategy, we want to do now I want to do a mastermind, now I want to do like this product, I want to do this product. And we reset our business every time. And momentum in business is not built from a new strategy. Not always, very, very rarely actually. It's built from compounding. So doing what we do really good and doing more of that instead of adding and adding and adding. It just adds complexity instead of scaling simplicity. So reclaim clarity is like the process that helps you decide without all the noise. So definitely want to invite you to dive into that if that's something you feel like you could use the process around and really learn how to choose and claim clarity. Because strategy really only works when your leadership is clean, right? And when clarity returns to you because you claim it, because you actively pursue it, strategy do become simple again. Very simple. And this is where ease lives, well, part of ease, This is where we don't have to hustle a lot. We don't have to do so much to get results because we have direction and we know this is where I want to go. So, I mean, reclaim clarity, I think is something everybody should learn. It's like a basic leadership skill. So if you've been feeling stuck and you're like, I feel I do too much, I work, I hustle, and maybe you're even at that point where you're quietly frustrated with your business, then ask yourself, am I avoiding clarity because it feels uncomfortable to make that choice? I think this is a key question to reflect on every time you feel stuck. What am I avoiding? What is it that I'm avoiding to do? What decision am I avoiding? And be honest with yourself. I mean, if you are in a phase where you feel really burned out, maybe the decision you are avoiding is to take more time off to heal. I mean, it's a legit business choice. If you are in a phase where you really have a lot of passion going on and you really have a lot of energy to take action in your business, but you're avoiding that action, ask yourself, what clarity is it that I'm avoiding? Is it because I feel something is uncomfortable and that's why I don't choose? Because the moment you get clear is the moment you can decide, and your energy shifts. Your messaging is going to be so much sharper. You're going to stand out in the market, and your business, the action you take in your business will start to give you some response back, right? And clarity doesn't make you less feminine. It just makes you clear, and it makes your leadership way more aligned actually. And it makes your leadership visible, which is so important. So that's something I feel really is worth claiming and reclaiming if you felt you lost it. So if you want to learn, like, go grab the workshop. It is quite amazing. If it is not recorded yet, I don't know. I mean, the podcast, you could listen to this in 3 years. We don't know. And maybe you listen to it now and we're just announcing the workshop. If it's not ready for record, you will find that you can sign up for the workshop and get it as soon as it is recorded and ready for you. And maybe you can find it already now and you can just jump in and learn all my clarity tools and leadership tools and skills to help you really get clear on your leadership and make decisions that are way more aligned with who you are and where you want to go in business. So thank you so much for listening today. As always, if you like this podcast, leave a review. And if you haven't heard the last podcast about how to stop resetting your business, I mean, it's about January resets, but I mean, we can definitely perspectivize that like all over the year, because we always can find an excuse to reset, right? So if you haven't heard that one, I would definitely go and check that out. Have an absolutely stunning day and see you in the next episode.